On May 2nd, get ready to escape. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and e-readers this May 2nd. I was watching a Yellow Flash video and he was talking about how SJWs like Alana Smith and Tess Fowler believe that comic books are supposed to only be sold to quote-unquote woke people. Now, as a self-aware black man who has owned a publishing business, I can tell you that that logic is faulty, because that logic that Alana Smith and Tess Fowler are coming from is the perspective of a spoiled, self-entitled white female who has all the privileges in the world and believes that the comic book business is a place that she gets her resources from and she can use it as her own personal fiefdom. Because when it comes down to white girls like Alana Smith and Tess Fowler, they are used to getting their resources from beta white males like your Axel Alonso, who works at Marvel, and many others who work in the comic book industry, who will just give them jobs just because they are white females. And they'll sit there and come up with this whole concept talking about, oh, we're only going to sell our comics to quote-unquote woke people, not understanding that comic books and comic publishing is a business. And it is a business with a razor-thin profit margin. This is something I know firsthand working as a publisher for the last 9 years. When it comes down to publishing, you need every customer's dollars if you hope to stay in business. And you don't go around making statements on social media like comic books are only for woke people or those who agree with you, because you understand that your profit margin is incredibly razor thin, and 90% of the books that you publish in a calendar year, 90% of those books are going to fail. So it is important for you to make sure that the 10% of books that are successes are profitable, and you don't do things to trip over yourself to prevent those books from being profitable. But when it comes down to SJWs, they don't see comic book publishing as a business like I do. No, for them, this is a personal playground for them to play with and pretend like they're working, but it is not a business to make money. Moreover, they don't see these commercial characters, these superheroes, as the commercial properties that they are. And as commercial properties, they are supposed to be designed to sell to the largest audience possible. Because when you are out here selling comic books, you want to get as many readers buying those comics as possible. And if you understood the struggles that the industry has been going through over the last 20 years like I have, you understand it's important to make sure that you win over as many readers as possible, with this industry being in a slump and just about to get into a free fall where we're nearly on the brink of collapse. Because if you take a critical look at those Comic-Con numbers, at orders, those numbers show a very bleak picture of this comic book industry. When you have the top selling book for February, actually top ordered book for February being 100,000, what that's telling me is that that book only got maybe 40 or 50,000 sales. Because when it comes down to orders, those of us who know the publishing industry know that 50% of the books that are ordered usually don't get sold. So that means if there's 100,000 order for a Batman comic book, that means that most comic shops only sold 50,000 comics in most cases. But your SJWs, they don't understand business, they don't understand numbers, and they don't understand the bleak picture that these numbers are painting of the comic book industry. No, they believe that they're going to sell comics to their friends and it's going to be some sort of social club, not understanding that in business, business is about making money so that you can have a profit at the end of the day. It is not about using the comic book industry as a place to propagate your ideas and your views. It's about trying to sell characters in fantastic adventures to the largest audience possible. because when you are trying to sell comic books, you want to appeal to all those people who are out there. Now, when it comes down to these SJWs, they don't want to sell comics to quote unquote Trump supporters, and they don't want to sell comics to people who don't agree with their groupthink. And that's a very narrow minded view of publishing because, again, publishing is a very risky business with a razor thin profit margin. And if you call yourself going out here to sell comic books only to quote unquote woke people, you're going to be running a business at a loss. Because when it comes down to publishing, again, it's a razor thin profit margin. And when I look at the books being produced by your SJWs at Marvel, Image, Valiant, and many others, it's looking to me like the books are of poor quality. Moreover, it's looking like many of the books being published are not being published with any sort of marketing plan or a plan to appeal to a certain demographic to maximize the number of people who would be interested in picking up these books. No, they want to go out here and sell books to obscure audiences, which are less than 1% of the American population and less than 0.5% of the population, people who probably would not even know that many of these comics exist, because when it comes down to comics, comics are only distributed and sold in comic book stores. So these people are sitting here talking about they're going to sell to woke people. Well, good luck with that, because you're not going to recoup any of your printing costs. Because when it comes down to comic books, you have to understand, again, you need those readers who you say you don't like. Now, when I'm running SJS Direct, it's like this. I could care less what somebody's political views are. I could care less what their beliefs are. If they want to pick up my products on Amazon.com or other online booksellers, I could care less what they believe or what they think. It's all about them wanting to pick up my books and me not doing things to go out here and alienate them on social media. My goal is to get as many customers as possible buying books like the ISIS series, The Temptation of John Haynes, the E-Steam series, or the Spinsterella trilogy, or many of my men's issues books like the Simp series. My goal is to get those people all over the world buying those books. And I have gotten people all over the world to buy those books. People not only in the United States, but in Canada, the UK, Mexico, India, Japan, and many European countries like Germany and France and Italy. So I've gotten many sales internationally because I understand that it's not about what I believe and what I feel. When you have a commercial product, it is about serving the customer, because when it's time to do business, you're going to have to put your feelings aside and put your ideas aside to appeal to the largest audience of customers possible. You may have an opinion about a certain political candidate or certain political belief, but you have to set those feelings aside when you are working in the publishing business, because when you are working in the publishing business, it is about selling product to customers, and the customer can choose not to buy your product if you present them with unprofessional behavior, like I have seen many comic creators present online. Those customers can't have the right not to spend their money with you, because if they see people acting unprofessionally, they're going to take a look at their product and say that this person is going to probably present unprofessional ideas and pretty much alienate me in their content. When you are trying to sell product to customers, your goal is to be as friendly as possible, approachable as possible, and provide the best customer service as possible. But sadly, many people at the billion-dollar institution known as Marvel Comics just don't understand this, and because they don't understand this, this is why their sales have declined. Same thing with IDW, and same thing with Image Comics. These people don't understand how business works, and they don't understand that your goal as a publisher is to provide readers with entertainment that allows them an opportunity to escape their problems and escape their troubles and have a little fun for a little moment in the day, not sit there and try to push problems in front of them and push your narrative on them. If you want to make that type of content, you can go someplace like CreateSpace, get yourself a free account, and then you can find out how many sales you'll actually get. Because as a guy who has been working on places like CreateSpace, I can honestly tell you it's a real struggle on that platform to try to build an audience, because when it comes down to that audience, you actually have to spend all the money. And this is something that your test filers and many others don't understand, because they're used to getting their money from corporate institutions like Marvel Comics, like Image Comics, like IDW. So they're used to spending somebody else's money on that, pushing their ideas and their far left narratives. And if they had to spend their own money, I guarantee you that their attitude would change regarding things. As a guy who has sat there for 9 years spending his own money, I can honestly tell you that you have to come to the marketplace with a professional attitude. And you have to come to the marketplace with the goal of serving every customer possible. Because if you want people to become aware of your products, you're going to have to change the way you behave in the marketplace. Because people if they want to become aware of your products, they need to see you coming to appeal to them, not you trying to bully them and shame them into buying your products. Because at the end of the day, it is the customer who has the choice to either pick your product or not pick your product. And when you go on social media saying that your comics are only for a certain group of people, you're alienating the larger base of customers out there. All of those casual readers who might have seen a great cover on a book, but then go and then look to find who the creators of this book are, and they go on social media and then see a whole bunch of anti-Trump rants or other rants, and they say to themselves, I don't want to buy that product because this person seems like they are extremely unprofessional, and the way they are acting is not something I would want to see presented in business. Moreover, they look at the way these characters are portrayed and they say to themselves, I don't want to buy this book because many of the views in this book just don't reflect my values. Because when it comes down to commercial characters, it is not about you pushing your narrative, it is about you giving the customer the stories that are consistent with this character's adventures over the last 40, 50, even 75 years, and showing that you are going to make an effort to keep this character consistent from story to story, and that this character is going to stay true to their roots and their mission while making some sort of commentary on the times. And then the problem with the SJW is they want to get in your face when the story is told in fantasy between the lines, and these guys don't really understand that, because many of them do not understand the business of publishing, the craft of writing, nor the way to express yourself artistically, because these people are not interested in art. It's all about their ego, it's all about their agenda, and it's all about what they want and not serving the customer. If you are in the publishing business, you are going to make every effort to reach the customer. If you're a professional and you understand how this business works like I do, you understand that it is your goal to try to get as many customers as possible buying your product, because if customers don't buy your product, sooner or later you're going to go out of business, because all of those printing costs, they have to be paid somehow, and all of those salaries, you have to get money from somewhere to pay them. And if you're sitting up here publishing really poor quality books like your Squirrel Girls, your Riri Williams, Iron Man, and many other books which can barely get 12, 15,000 copies, or an America Chavez, which was barely down to 9,000 copies ordered, you're not going to be able to stay in business for that much longer. Again, when it comes down to the publishing business, you have fixed costs that need to be paid, and at the end of the day, in order to be able to get a profit, you need to get customers, building that word of mouth, which generates those sales, so that you can make money at the end of the day. But the SJW, they don't see this way because a lot of them come from a gynocentric perspective. And when you come from a gynocentric perspective, you are used to getting your resources from somebody else and believing that those resources are endless. Unfortunately, when it comes down to business, resources are finite, and in the publishing business, when you have resources wasted, like as I've seen at Marvel and many other companies, printing up comics that appeal to audiences that do not exist, what's going to happen is you're going to take so many losses that eventually you're going to wind up getting to the point where you have to go out of business. That's where IDW is right now by going along with these SJWs. They literally alienated their core audience of G.I. Joe fans, Transformers fans, and old school Hasbro fans to the point where many of them literally walked away from IDW's comics, which featured those characters, and their sales dropped 91%. And that literally led to that company literally being to the point where it's on the brink of going out of business, because eventually, again, you have to find a way to make sure that these comics that you publish make enough money to pay for those printing costs, to pay for those artists, to pay for those editors, to pay for all those people. And then maybe at the end of the day, after you've sold enough comics, you can have a little bit of money to eke out a nice little profit. But because your SJW does not understand the big picture as related to business, they follow this gynocentric approach thinking that it's all about their agenda. But if you don't have a focus on business, you're not going to be in any sort of business to sell anything to anyone. This is something many people who are working in the comic book industry don't understand right now, because they're approaching comics and trying to turn it into their own personal fiefdom, not understanding that comic books are a business. And if you don't come into comics with a business mindset and a plan to make a profit, you're going to be poor in the poorhouse sooner rather than later. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, The Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. And if you want to help me make more books and publish more books and pay for book covers, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.